The attic smelled of dust and memory, a mausoleum of my father's life. I knelt on the creaking floorboards, a box of his old journals open before me, their leather covers cracked with age. 2 months ago, Dad, Malcolm, had slipped away, his heart giving out at 70, leaving me this house and a legacy of quiet kindness. The late afternoon sun slanted through the dormer window, gilding the pages where his handwriting danced. Plans for the orchard, notes on the cider press he'd built. This was his sanctuary, and mine too, until betrayal tainted it. Footsteps thudded up the stairs, sharp and deliberate, heels on wood. I didn't need to turn to know who it was. Only one person would invade this space with such audacity. Becca, a voice purred, syrupy and sharp, Livia, my ex-husband Gideon's new wife. I kept my eyes on the journal, my fingers tightening around its edge. "Still rummaging through junk?" she said, her shadow falling over me. I glanced up. There she stood, 34, all sleek blonde hair and designer boots, her red lips curled in a smirk. Gideon's shadow loomed behind her, silent but heavy. "What do you want, Livia?" I asked, my voice low, steady despite the pulse hammering in my throat. She stepped closer, her perfume cloying over the attic's must. "Oh, just checking in. The will's being read tomorrow, you know. Gideon and I thought we'd see the lay of the land." I stood, brushing dust off my jeans. "The land? This is my father's house. My home." "Was," Gideon said, his first words, his voice flat. He was 38 now, broader than when we'd married, his eyes cold where they'd once been warm. "Malcolm treated me like a son. 15 years, Becca." "That counts." "Counts?" I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You left me for her 3 years ago. Cheated, lied, walked out. That's what counts." Livia's smile widened, predatory. "Past is past, sweetie. Malcolm forgave him. And this place, orchard house business, it's too big for one person. We deserve a share." I gripped the journal, its leather grounding me. "Deserve? You never lifted a finger here." "I did, every harvest, every repair. This is mine." "We'll see," she said, turning on her heel. "Tomorrow's a big day." Gideon followed, his silence a betrayal renewed. The stairs groaned under their retreat, leaving me alone with the echoes. I sank back to the floor, the journal trembling in my hands. 15 years, Gideon helping Dad prune trees, drinking cider by the fire, erased by his affair with Livia, a junior exec he'd met at a conference. Dad had forgiven him, welcomed him still, while I'd nursed the wounds. Now they wanted his legacy, my refuge. My phone buzzed, my friend Nadia. "You okay?" "No," I texted. "They were here. Want Dad's estate." "Those snakes," she replied. "Call Jasper." Jasper, my avocat, a sharp mind with a sharper tongue. I dialed, his gruff voice answering. "Becca, what's up?" "Gideon and Livia," I said. "They're after the estate. Tomorrow's the will reading." He chuckled dark. "Let him try. I've got plans." "What plans?" I asked, hope flickering. "You'll see," he said. "Bring everything, photos, logs, proof you ran this place. They won't know what hit them." I hung up, a spark igniting. They thought I'd yield, that betrayal had broken me. But this was my ground, Dad's gift. Livia's greed, Gideon's gall, I'd turn it against them. I whispered to the attic, "You'll pay." The fight was on, and I'd win. Kitchen glowed with evening light, the oak table scarred from years of cider tastings. I sat there, Dad's journals stacked beside me, their pages a map of his life and mine. Photos spilled from an envelope, me and him pressing apples, Gideon laughing with a pitchfork moments before the fracture. Livia's words, "We deserve a share," clawed at me, a fresh wound over old scars. I traced a photo of Gideon and Dad, their smiles mocking me. 15 years of marriage, 10 helping Dad build this place, orchard, cidery home. Then Livia, with her sharp heels and sharper ambitions, stole him. 3 years ago, I'd found texts, "Meet me tonight," and he'd left without a fight. Dad kept him close, said, "He's still family." I'd swallowed it, rebuilt alone. Now they wanted more. My phone buzzed. Nadia. Jasper called me. "Says you've got ammo." "Yes," I texted. "Logs, photos, proof I ran this." "Good," she replied. "They're vultures. Rip 'em apart." I opened a logbook. Every harvest, every sale, my handwriting next to Dad's. Gideon's name faded after year 10, mine grew. Livia never appeared. This was my sweat, my legacy. They'd claim it over my dead body. The doorbell rang, a harsh chime. I opened it, Gideon alone, his coat damp from drizzle. "Becca," he said, stepping in, "we need to talk." "No," I said, blocking him. "You said enough when you left." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry, okay? But Malcolm, he loved me too. This place was ours." "Ours," I snapped. "I stayed. I worked. You ran to her." "Livia's right," he said. "It's too much for you alone. We could split it fair." "Fair?" I laughed, cold. "You cheated, abandoned me, and now you want half? Get out." "Becca, please," he said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "Tomorrow," I said. "You'll see what fair looks like." He left, his shoulders slumped. I shut the door, trembling. "Sorry?" Too late. His apology was a ploy, Livia's greed in his mouth. They thought I'd cave, that the past had softened me. But it had hardened me instead. I returned to the table, flipping through logs. A note caught my eye, Dad's scrawl 2 years ago. "Becca's the heart of this. Gideon's gone astray." My throat tightened. He'd seen it, even if he'd forgiven. This was mine, not theirs. My phone buzzed. "Jasper. Got your stuff. Logs are gold. Livia's got no claim. Gideon's weak." "What's the plan?" I asked. "Ambush," he said. "Will reading's just the start. Trust me." I hung up, a fire kindling. Gideon's visit wasn't remorse, it was fear. They knew I had something, even if they didn't know what. I packed the logs, photos, proof, my arsenal. Tomorrow, Jasper's office would be their reckoning. The house creaked, Dad's presence in every groan. I poured a glass of cider, his recipe my hands. Livia's boots, Gideon's lies, they'd trampled my trust, now my home. But I'd fight. This wasn't just about money, it was Dad's memory, my ground. I raised the glass. "To you, Dad," I whispered. "They won't take you again." The night deepened and I planned. Betrayal had left its mark, but I'd turn it into their ruin. Jasper's ambush loomed and I'd wield it like a blade. I muttered, "Watch me stand." The game was set and I'd play it smarter. The avocate's office was a sterile box, white walls, gray carpet, the hum of a printer in the corner. I sat beside Jasper, his desk a fortress of files, my logs and photos stacked like ammunition. Across the room, Gideon slouched, Livia perched beside him, her nails tapping the armrest. The executor, Mr. Harrow, a thin man with wire glasses, shuffled papers at the head of the table. "Let's begin," Harrow said, voice dry. "Malcolm Pierce's will, dated last year." He cleared his throat. "To my daughter Becca, I leave my estate, house, orchard, cidery, all assets. To Gideon Carver, my gratitude for past years, but no claim." Livia's nails stopped. "What?" she snapped, leaning forward. "That can't be right." "It is," Harrow said, sliding the document across. "Signed, witness, legal." Gideon's face paled. "Malcolm promised me." promised. Cut in standing. You left. I stayed. This is mine. Livia laughed sharp. Oh, Becca, you're so naive. Gratitude's a start. Gideon was family. We'll contest it. Contest? Jasper grinned, leaning back. Go ahead. Becca's got proof, years of work, logs, photos. You've got nothing. Harrow nodded. The will's clear. Any challenge needs evidence. Evidence? Livia said, smirking. Gideon was Malcolm's son-in-law. He helped build that place. Helped. I laughed, cold. You stopped years ago, Gideon. I ran it, every apple, every bottle. Dad knew. Jasper slid a logbook forward. Here, Becca's name every season. Gideon's? Barely a whisper after 2019. Livia? Never. Livia's smirk faltered. That's irrelevant. Emotional ties matter. Not in court, Jasper said. You've got no ground. Gideon stood, voice tight. Becca, don't do this. We can share. Share. I snapped. You shared my trust with her. This is mine. Harrow packed up. It's settled unless you file a claim. Good day. Livia stormed out, Gideon trailing, his eyes pleading. I stayed, adrenaline buzzing. Jasper chuckled. Round one, Becca. They're rattled. They thought I'd fold, I said, gathering my things. Not this time. Back home, the orchard stretched before me, trees heavy with apples. I walked the rows, the earth soft underfoot, Dad's voice in the wind. This is yours, Becca. Livia's gall, Gideon's nerve, they tried to claw it away, banking on guilt, on weakness. But the will was my shield, Jasper's plan my sword. My phone buzzed, Nadia. How'd it go? Will's mine, I texted. They're mad. Good, she replied. What's Jasper's next move? Waiting, I wrote. They'll push back. I sat on the porch, cider in hand, its tang a comfort. This wasn't just about the estate. It was Dad's trust, my refuge, stained by Gideon's betrayal, now Livia's greed. They thought family ties held weight, but those ties snapped when he chose her. I'd mend them my way. The sun dipped, shadows lengthening. Livia's threat, we'll contest, echoed, but Jasper's grin lingered. He had plans, and I trusted him. Gideon's pleas, Livia's smirk. They'd underestimated me, thought the past had broken me. It hadn't. It had forged me. My phone buzzed, Gideon. Becca, let's talk. Don't drag this out. I smiled, typing. You dragged me down. Now you'll see. No reply. Good. Let them stew. This was my ground, Dad's gift, and I'd defend it. The real fight was coming, and Jasper's ambush would seal it. I whispered, you won't take this too. The night fell, and I stood ready. The orchard hummed with dusk, crickets weaving a chorus through the trees. I stood among the apples, their scent sharp and sweet, a pruning knife in my hand. The will reading had lit a fuse, Livia's fury, Gideon's desperation, but I felt the earth beneath me, Dad's roots holding firm. This was my fight, and I'd win it here where he'd taught me strength. My phone buzzed, Jasper. They're filing a claim tomorrow. Emotional ties bullshit. We're ready. Good, I texted. What's the plan? Counterstrike, he replied. Proof you're the estate's soul. They've got nothing. I pocketed the phone, cutting a dead branch, its snap a promise. Livia thought heels and smirks could claim this. Gideon thought old promises held weight. They didn't know me, not the Becca who'd rebuilt after his affair, who'd kept Dad's dream alive. Footsteps crunched gravel, Livia, alone, her silhouette cutting the twilight. Becca, she called, voice dripping venom. We need to settle this. I turned, knife in hand. Settle? The will's clear. You lost. She stepped closer, boots sinking into soil. Gideon deserves this, years with Malcolm family. You're selfish, hoarding it. Selfish. I laughed, bitter. He cheated, left me. I stayed. You're the vulture here. Her eyes narrowed. We'll fight court lawyers. Malcolm loved Gideon. That matters. Loved, I said, stepping forward. Dad wrote him out. I'm his legacy, not your pawn. You're delusional, she spat. This place is too big for you. We'll take half fair. Fair? I gripped the knife tighter. Get off my land. She smirked, turning away. See you in court, sweetie. I watched her go, rage simmering. Court. They dragged Dad's memory through mud, twist his forgiveness into their gain. But Jasper was ready, and so was I. This wasn't just about money, it was my home, my past, my fight. Back inside, I opened a journal, Dad's words last year. Becca's my rock. Gideon drifted. Tears stung, but I wiped them away. He'd seen it, even if he'd softened. Livia's greed, Gideon's gall, they'd pay for this. My phone buzzed, Nadia. Livia was there? Yes, I texted. Threatened court. Jasper's got it. Kick her ass, she replied. This is yours. I poured cider, its amber glow a quiet vow. The orchard whispered around me, Dad's hands in the soil, my sweat in the harvest. They thought betrayal had weakened me, that I'd yield to their claim. But it had sharpened me, and Jasper's plan would cut deeper. A memory hit, Gideon leaving, bags packed, saying, You'll be fine, Becca. I was, but not how he thought. I'd rebuilt here alone while he chased Livia's shine. Now they wanted my foundation. The knife gleamed on the table, a silent ally. Livia's boots had scarred my ground, her words my peace. But I'd scar them back, legally, relentlessly. Jasper's counterstrike loomed, and I'd wield it like this blade. My phone buzzed, Gideon. Becca, don't do this. We can split it. I typed cold, you split us. Now you'll lose. Silence. Good. Let him feel it. They'd built this on my ruins, thinking I'd crumble again. But I'd rise and they'd fall. I raised my glass. To Dad, I whispered. And me. The night thickened and I sharpened my resolve. The orchard was mine and they'd regret stepping on it. Jasper's office was a war room, files stacked, coffee mugs scattered, a whiteboard scrawled with timelines. I sat across from him, the pruning knife traded for a pen, my logs and photos spread out. Livia and Gideon's claim had landed. Emotional ties, Gideon's family status. Jasper grinned, his eyes glinting like a hunter's. They're grasping, he said, tapping their filing. No proof, just sob stories. We've got the kill shot. What's that? I asked, leaning in. He slid a folder forward. Tax records, cidery profits, my name on every line. You've run this solo for 3 years. Gideon's contributions? Zilch since he left. Livia's a ghost. Plus, he pulled out a letter, Malcolm's note to me last year. Becca inherits all. Gideon's out. I stared, heart pounding. He wrote that. Yep, Jasper said. Insurance. Knew Gideon might pull this. A weight lifted, Dad's foresight, his trust. So we win. More, he said. We counter, sue for harassment, legal fees. Bury them. Do it, I said, resolve stealing. They've taken enough. Back home, the orchard glowed under dawn, mist curling around the trees. I walked the rows, cider logs in hand, each entry a brick in my wall. Livia's threat, court lawyers, echoed, but Jasper's trap was set. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd buckle under their gall. I wouldn't. The doorbell rang sharp and early. I opened it, Gideon, eyes bloodshot, alone. "Becca," he said, voice low, "drop this. We'll settle, quarter share, no fight." "No," I said, arms crossed. "You don't get a crumb." He stepped closer. "I'm begging. Malcolm wouldn't want this, us tearing each other apart." "Malcolm," I snapped. "You tore us apart, cheated, left. Dad wrote you out. This is mine." "Livia's pushing," he said, desperate. "I'll stop her, just give me something." "Something?" I laughed, cold. "You had everything. Get out." He left, head bowed. I shut the door, trembling. Begging? Too late. His weakness fueled Livia's greed, but Jasper's plan would crush them both. This wasn't just about the estate, it was my life, Dad's faith, my stand. My phone buzzed, Nadia. "Gideon there?" "Yes," I texted. Pleaded. I said no. "Good," she replied. "Jasper's ready?" "Yes," I wrote. "Counter-strike's coming." I sat on the porch, cider in hand, its tang a quiet strength. Gideon's pleas, Livia's smirk. They thought I'd soften, that betrayal had dulled me. But it had honed me, and Jasper's trap was my blade. Dad's letter, "Becca inherits all," was my shield, his love my armor. A memory surfaced, Gideon packing, saying, "I'm sorry," as Livia waited in the car. Cried then, rebuilt since. Now they wanted my rebuild. The sun climbed, warming the orchard. Jasper's counter would hit tomorrow, court filings, evidence, a legal storm. They'd claim family, I'd claim truth. Livia's boots, Gideon's lies, they'd trampled my past, now my present. But I'd tramp theirs down. My phone buzzed, Jasper. Filed. They're served tomorrow. Game on. "Thanks," I texted. "End this." I raised my glass to the trees. "To Dad," I whispered. In my fight, the day stretched and I stood firm. They'd built this on my pain, thinking I'd yield. Jasper's trap was set and I'd spring it. The orchard was mine and they'd rue the day they challenged me. The morning was crisp, dew clinging to the orchard like tears unshed. I stood on the porch, coffee steaming, when a car rolled up, process server, papers in hand. Jasper's counter-strike had begun. Livia and Gideon's claim would hit them back today, served at their sleek condo. I smiled, imagining her smirk dissolving. My phone buzzed, Jasper. They've got it. Fraud counterclaim, legal fees, emotional distress. They're screwed. Good, I texted. What now? Wait, he replied. They'll crack. Court's next if they push. I sipped my coffee, the bitterness grounding me. Fraud, Jasper had dug deeper, found Gideon's old cidery invoices, padded with lies, signed when he'd still been family. Livia's name wasn't there, but her shadow was. They'd built this greed on my ruins, and I'd bury them in it. The doorbell rang, loud and frantic. I opened it, Livia, her face pale, eyes wild, papers clutched in her manicured hand. Becca, she hissed, what the hell is this? Your bill, I said, leaning against the frame. Fraud, harassment, pay up. She laughed, shrill. You're insane. We'll fight Gideon's legacy. Legacy. Cut in sharp. He cheated, left. Dad cut him out. You've got no claim. Courts will see, she said, stepping closer. Malcolm loved him. That's enough. No, I said, holding her gaze. I've got proof, logs, letters. You've got nothing. She crumpled the papers, fury trembling. You'll lose everything, legal fees, this dump. Give us half and it's done. Half. I laughed, cold. Get off my porch. She threw the papers at my feet, storming off. I watched her go, pulse racing. Cracking. Jasper was right, they were rattled. This wasn't just about the estate, it was my ground, Dad's trust, my fight reborn. Back inside, I picked up the papers, Jasper's filing, a wall of evidence. Gideon's fraud, Livia's baseless claim, my life's work turned weapon. They thought I'd buckle, that betrayal had softened me. It hadn't. It had sharpened me. My phone buzzed, Nadia. Livia there? Yes, I texted. Served and screaming. Jasper's gold. Love it, she replied. Gideon? Not yet, I wrote. He'll crawl soon. I walked to the orchard, the trees whispering Dad's voice. You're enough, Becca. Livia's boots had scarred my peace, Gideon's pleased my past. But Jasper's storm was mine, and I'd wield it. They'd claim love, I'd claim truth. A memory hit, Dad pruning, saying, Gideon's lost, but you're here. I'd stayed, rebuilt, while they chased shine. Now they wanted my roots. The phone buzzed, Gideon. Becca, stop this. Livia's a mess. I'll drop it, just talk. I type steady, too late. You started it. I'll end it. Silence. Good. Let him drown in it. They built this on my pain, thinking I'd yield. Jasper's trap was sprung, and I'd tighten it. I poured cider, its glow a quiet triumph. The served papers were my thunder, the orchard my lightning. Livia's rage, Gideon's panic, they'd underestimated me, thought family ties held me. Those ties broke when he left, and I'd forged new ones, steel, not thread. I raised my glass. To Dad, I whispered. And my stand. The day burned on, and I stood tall. They'd rue this, not in tears, but in their own wreckage. The fight was mine, and I'd win it. The orchard shimmered under noon sun, apples glinting like jewels. I sat on the porch, pruning knife idle, Jasper's papers beside me. Livia's outburst, Gideon's plea, they were fracturing, their claim a house of cards in my wind. Counterstrike had landed, and I felt the ground shift beneath them. My phone buzzed, Nadia. Heard Livia trashed her office. You're winning. Good, I texted. Gideon's next. I leaned back, cider logs open. Every entry, my hands, Dad's dream, proof they couldn't touch. Jasper's fraud claim wasn't just defense, it was offense, a blade to their greed. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd fade. I hadn't. I'd risen. Footsteps crunched, Gideon alone, his face haggard, suit rumpled. Becca, he said, stopping short, I'm done. Livia's pushing, but I'll stop her. Drop this, please. I stood, knife in hand. Drop it. You filed first, one in my home, Dad's work. He rubbed his face, weary. I didn't want this fight. She did. Malcolm, he'd hate this. Malcolm! I snapped. You betrayed him too, me, us. He wrote you out. This is mine. I know, he said, voice breaking. I messed up, leaving you her. I'll sign it away, just stop. Too late, I said, stepping closer. You chose her. Now you'll both pay. Becca, he begged, tears welling, I'm sorry. For everything. Sorry. I laughed, cold. You left me bleeding. This is my blood, my ground. Get out. He stumbled back, defeated. I watched him go, no pity stirring. Sorry didn't erase 3 years of rebuilding, didn't unstain Dad's memory. Livia drove this, but he'd followed. Now he crumbled, and she'd fall next. My phone buzzed, Jasper. Gideon called me. Wants to settle. Livia's still in, court set. Push it, I texted. No deals. Got it, he replied. She's toast. I sat, cider in hand, its tang a quiet fire. Gideon's facade, remorse, please, was dust. Livia's would follow. They thought betrayal had broken me, that I'd yield to guilt. It hadn't. It had forged me, and Jasper's plan was my hammer. A memory hit, Dad after Gideon left, saying, "You're stronger, Becca." I doubted then, proven now. They'd claimed family, I'd claimed truth. This wasn't just about the estate, it was my soul, Dad's trust, my fight reborn. The doorbell rang. Livia, her face a mask of rage, papers in hand. "You bitch," she hissed. "You've turned him against me." "No," I said, calm. "You did that. Fraud claims real, your move." She laughed, manic. "Court'll see, Gideon's history here. You'll lose." "History," I said. "I've got logs, letters. You've got lies. Go ahead, try." She threw the papers, storming off. I left them, wind scattering her threats. Crumbling. They'd built this on my pain, thinking I'd bow. Jasper's trap was tightening, and I'd pull the rope. My phone buzzed, Nadia. "Gideon's out?" "Yes," I texted. "Livia's alone. Court's next." "Finish her," she replied. I raised my glass to the orchard. "To Dad," I whispered. And my strength. The sun blazed, and I stood firm. Their facade was dust, Gideon broken, Livia flailing. The real fight loomed, and I'd wield it. They'd rue this, not in tears, but in their own ruin. I muttered, "You'll see me now." The game was mine, and I'd end it. Courtrooms smelled of wax and tension, a sterile arena for my war. I sat beside Jasper, his suit crisp, my logs and photos a silent army. Livia stood across, alone, Gideon absent, her lawyer whispering, her eyes darting. The judge, a stern woman with gray curls, flipped through filings, Jasper's counterstrike a thunderhead over her desk. "Ms. Pierce," she began, "your counterclaim, fraud, harassment. Present your case." Jasper stood, voice steady. Becca Pierce inherited Malcolm Pierce's estate, house, orchard, cidery. Livia Hensley and Gideon Carver contested, claiming emotional ties. But Becca ran it 3 years solo. Logs, profits, Malcolm's letter, all hers. Their claims baseless, and Gideon's fraud, fake invoices, makes it malicious. He slid the evidence forward, logs, Dad's note. Becca inherits all. The judge's eyes narrowed. Livia's lawyer stood, slick. Gideon was family, 15 years with Malcolm. Emotional bonds matter. Frauds improven. Improven? Jasper laughed, playing a recording, Gideon's voice. Pad the invoices, no one'll check. The room stilled, Livia's face paling. "Where'd you get that?" her lawyer snapped. "From me," I said, standing. "He thought I wouldn't notice, left files open when we were married. I kept them." The judge leaned forward. "Miss Hensley, your response?" Livia stood, voice shrill. "Gideon's weak, he's out. I deserve this, Malcolm cared for us." "Cared?" Cut in sharp. "He wrote you off." I stayed, worked, bled. "You stole my husband, now my home?" "Enough," the judge said. "Evidence?" Livia's lawyer fumbled. "We've testimony, Gideon's bond." "Gideon's not here," Jasper said. "He's withdrawn." Livia's got nothing. Logs show Becca's work, letters clear. The judge flipped through, silent. Ms. Pierce's claim stands, estate's hers. Counterclaim, fraud substantiated. "Miss Hensley, you'll pay damages fees." Livia gasped. "You can't." "I can," the judge said. "Case dismissed." She stormed out, her lawyer trailing. Jasper grinned. "Told you, Becca." "They're done." I nodded, relief flooding. "Thanks, Jasper." Back home, the orchard basked in dusk, trees whispering victory. I walked the rows, cider logs in hand, my proof, my triumph. Livia's greed, Gideon's lies, crushed in that courtroom. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd yield. I hadn't. I'd won. My phone buzzed, Nadia. You did it. Yes, I texted. She's broke, damages, fees. Gideon's gone. Queen, she replied. Party soon. Soon, I wrote. First this. I sat on the porch, cider glowing. This wasn't just about the estate, it was Dad's trust, my ground, my soul reclaimed. Livia's smirk, Gideon's pleas, dust now. Jasper's trap had sprung, and I'd pulled the lever. A memory hit, Dad pruning, saying, You're my heart, Becca. I'd proven it not just to him, but to me. They'd claimed family, I'd claimed truth. The phone buzzed, Livia. You've ruined me. Happy. Yes, I typed. You ruined me first. Goodbye. Silence. Perfect. They'd built this on my pain, thinking I'd break. I'd rebuilt and they'd fallen. I raised my glass. To Dad, I whispered. In my fight. The night fell and I stood tall. The reckoning was mine, Livia crushed, Gideon gone. The orchard was safe and I'd defended it. One last step remained and it was all me. I muttered, You'll never touch this. The victory was mine and I'd savor it. The orchard glowed under dawn, mist weaving through the trees like a shroud lifted. I stood on the porch, coffee in hand, the courtroom's echo still ringing. Livia's defeat, Gideon's absence. Damages and fees had gutted her, Jasper's trap a perfect strike. The estate was mine, untainted, Dad's legacy secure. My phone buzzed, Nadia. Heard Livia's selling her condo. You broke her. Good, I texted. She broke me first. I walked the rows, apples heavy, the earth soft. Logs sat on the table, my proof, my shield. Livia's claim, we deserve this, was ash now, Gideon's pleas a ghost. They'd underestimated me, thought betrayal had dulled me. It had sharpened me, and I'd cut them down. The doorbell rang, soft, hesitant. I opened it, Gideon, eyes sunken, hands in pockets. Becca, he said, voice raw, I'm out. Livia's done. Can we talk? No, I said, steady. You talked when you left. This is done. I'm sorry, he said, trembling. I didn't want this, her, the fight. I lost everything. You chose it, I snapped. Cheated, claimed my home. Sorry doesn't fix that. Please, he begged, just hear me. Ow, I said, shutting the door. His shadow lingered, then faded. No pity stirred. He'd built this ruin, followed Livia's greed. Now he reaped it. Back inside, I poured cider, its glow a quiet triumph. Gideon's collapse, Livia's fall. This wasn't just about the estate. It was Dad's trust, my ground, my worth reborn. They'd trampled my past, thought I'd yield my present. I hadn't. I'd won. My phone buzzed, Jasper. Livia's lawyers begging a deal, drop damages, they'll vanish. No, I texted. Let her pay. Ruthless, he replied. Love it. It's over. I sat, logs open, my hands, Dad's dream. A note caught my eye. Becca's my strength. Tears welled, but I smiled. He'd known, even forgiving Gideon. This was mine, not theirs. A memory hit, Gideon leaving, Livia's car idling. I'd rebuilt here alone while they chased shine. Now they wanted my roots, too late. Jasper's counter my fight, they'd lost it all. The phone buzzed, Nadia. Party tonight? Celebrate? Yes, I texted. My place. Bring wine. I walked the orchard, sun climbing. Livia's boots, Gideon's lies, scars on my peace now healed. They'd claimed family, I'd claimed truth. The aftermath was theirs, dust, debt, defeat. Mine was this trees, cider, home. The doorbell rang, Livia, haggard, eyes red. "Becca," she rasped, "drop the damages. I'm broke." "No," I said cold. "You wanted my life. Pay for it." "You're heartless," she spat, turning away. "No," I called. "I'm whole." She stumbled off, a shadow shrinking. I shut the door, a weight gone. They'd built this on my pain, thinking I'd break. I'd rebuilt, and they'd crumbled. I raised my glass. "To Dad," I whispered. "And me." The day stretched, mine to claim. The aftermath was theirs, ruin, regret. Mine was victory, and I'd live it. They'd rue this, not in tears, but in their own dust. I muttered, "You're gone." The orchard sang, and I stood free. The orchard blazed under twilight, lanterns strung through the trees, laughter rippling over cider glasses. Nadia had rallied friends, 10 of us, a circle of warmth on the porch. The estate was mine, Livia crushed, Gideon erased. Damages paid, their claim dust. This was my dawn, Dad's legacy reborn in my hands. I stood by the rail, cider glowing, watching fireflies dance. Nadia sidled up, wine in hand. "Becca," she said, grinning, "you're a legend." "They're gone." "Yes," I said, sipping. "Took everything I had, but I won." She hugged me, fierce. "You're unstoppable." "No," I said, smiling. "Just me." The party hummed, stories, toasts, the orchard alive. I'd rebuilt here, alone, after Gideon's betrayal, Livia's shadow. 3 years of sweat, Dad's trust, now mine, untouchable. They'd underestimated me, thought I'd yield. I'd risen, and they'd fallen. My phone buzzed, Jasper. Livia's paid up. Gideon's vanished. "You're clear." "Thanks," I texted. "For everything." "Pleasure," he replied. "You fought like hell." I pocketed it, a memory surfacing, Dad pruning, saying, "This is yours, Becca." I'd proven it not just to him, but to me. Livia's greed, Gideon's gall, ashes now. Jasper's trap, my resolve, they'd lost it all. Nadia raised her glass. "To Becca, the queen of this ground." Laughter erupted, glasses clinking. I smiled, raising mine. "To Dad," I said. "And us." Later, alone, I walked the rows, stars piercing the dark. Logs sat inside, my proof, my past. A note lingered, Becca's my heart. Tears fell, but I let them. He'd known, even forgiving Gideon. This was mine, not theirs. The house creaked, Dad's voice in its bones. I poured cider, its tang a quiet hymn. Livia's boots, Gideon's lies, scars healed. They'd claimed family, I'd claimed truth. Courtroom was my forge, Jasper's plan my fire. I'd burned their claim, rebuilt my roots. A memory hit, Gideon leaving, saying, "You'll be fine." I was, but not his way. I'd fought, stood, won. Now they wanted my strength, too late. The phone buzzed, Nadia's photo, us laughing. "Best night," she captioned. I smiled, raising my glass. "To me," I whispered. "The one who stayed." The orchard stretched, mine to tend. Livia's ruin, Gideon's dust, aftermath theirs. Mine was this trees' home triumph. They'd rue this, not in tears, but in their own void. I stepped inside, the party fading. The attic waited, Dad's journals my anchor. I keep them, tend them, live them. Betrayal had marked me, but I'd marked it back, harder, truer. The night deepened, and I stood firm. The roots were mine, deep, unbroken. Livia and Gideon were ghosts, their claim a whisper drowned by my roar. I defended this not just for Dad, but for me. I sipped my cider, its taste sharp and sweet. The fight was over and I'd won. A new dawn waited and I'd shape it, my ground, my terms. I muttered, "This is mine." The stars burned and I was free.